The cleaners are the devil incarnate. They're capable of clearing out entire objectives with a single firebomb, blocking off lanes with their incinerator drones, and straight up setting their opponents ablaze with their Purifier and Incinerator rounds. Every fight against a cleaner puts you at an immediate disadvantage, and if there isn't a Libertad around, expect to be a pile of ash soon after. Or perhaps, you want to be the one turning them to ash. Come, let me show you the way of the cleaners. Starting with their passive, the cleaners have access to Incinerator rounds, but comes with the drawback of decreasing your weapon's range. This is most noticeable on weapons with very short range like pistols, everything else is pretty much unnoticeable. Even then, the extra burn damage makes up for that slight damage decrease you get with the shorter range. Because of this, the range decrease is effectively non-existent. In reality, the extra burn damage allows you to get kills where you otherwise wouldn't. An example of this is the pistols, as I've already shown, and the AK. On the other factions, it takes 4 headshots to kill a 100 HP target, but with the cleaners, it's 3. Not to mention they also give the ability to get kills from beyond the grave, which are always satisfying. Moving on from Incinerator rounds, we have the first and easily one of the best abilities in the game, the Firebomb. Detonate a Molotov cocktail causing explosive damage and igniting the area. This has a total radius of around 5 meters and a one-shot radius of around 2.5 meters. Since this radius is very small and the damage fall off kicks in very quickly, you'll sometimes notice that you do explosive damage, but finish them off with the fire that's left behind. And this fire lasts for 5 seconds. The leftover flames is also what makes this so strong, because not only can it clear multiple people off an objective, but can also zone them off due to that lingering fire. The other ability is the Incinerator drone. The Incinerator drone is a napalm delivering drone that burns everything in its path and either deals explosive damage on impact or at the end of its flight path. The Incinerator drone can one-shot just like the Firebomb with the explosion and also leaves flames on the ground that damage enemies. The drone can fly up to around 20 meters where it will then self-detonate, doing damage to anyone within around 5 meters. With the fire that's left over lasting about 6 seconds, where it will then dissipate in the same way it was applied. This is good for pushing people out of cover and cutting off angles where you could then use the fire as an information tool to know if they're pushing. And it's also good for those really open maps where you struggle to get value out of the Firebomb. Think of maps like Mayday and Times Square. And last is your ultimate, the Purifier. It's a flamethrower. The Purifier has a range of 10 meters and can interkill in most situations. The situation where it doesn't is Libertad's ult, where it will take twice as long because they have 200 HP, but this can get a bit complicated because if you miss, they'll start to regen. The other situation is if you only hit them with one tick of the flamethrower, where it will then start to tick down their health over time. But past those situations, the Purifier is exceptional at clearing out congested spaces like occupied zones and B flags. However, there is one thing you need to know, and that is shields and distance are your enemy. A good rule to remember is as long as you're close and there's no shields, everything within 10 meters will be torched. If there's a shield or you're too far away, you're torched. The cleaners are the most straightforward playstyle out of any faction in the game, and that's to run in head first and get as many gunfights as possible to get control over the objective. As we just went over, your Incendiary rounds, Firebomb, and Incinerator drone are all super strong tools that allow you to make the map your playground and dictate how the enemy team can play. However, this varies heavily on which ability you choose. So let's start with the Firebomb first. When Firebomb is your ability, you are a close quarters demon, and you'll be jumping in people's faces often. So, to lead into this, you should be playing a sub. My personal choice is the P90, but go whatever you're comfortable with. You can use an AR, but I feel that it's kind of a waste since you'll always be close to your opponents, so it just benefits you to run an SMG where your TTK is way quicker. Now, you have 2 main jobs when running Firebomb, and that's for 1, to clear the objective, and 2, to counter phantoms. Firebomb is exceptional at taking out phantoms who are too close to their mag barrier and unaround surroundings, pushing too aggressively with a blitz shield, or using Aegis at a bad time. The objective part is simple. You run in, drop the bomb, do a little pew pew, rinse and repeat. Countering phantoms on the other hand can get tricky at times, and that's all dependent on how good the phantom player is. Because if they watch my guide, then the only time you get a super high chance of firebombing them is when they ult. And they'll be aware of this, and they'll try to eliminate you before they end up ulting. Your job here is to survive as long as possible without having to use your firebomb, so you always are that lingering threat along with DeadSec's ult. But if they're bad and they use ult without worrying about you, then your job now is to try and get in close and trade yourself off with whoever else is inside of it, which will completely end their push. Moving over to the Incinerator drone, you have a very similar playstyle as the Firebomb, where you'll still want to attack the objective, but instead of bullying phantoms, you're going to be controlling lines of sight and pushing people off of strong angles using your drones. Since you're going to be at medium range most of the time, I would suggest playing an AR, but you can certainly still use a sub if you want. The first thing you have to get used to when using the Incinerator drone is the timing of when it flies out your hand so that you don't send it straight into a wall. But don't worry if you do, as it can't damage you. The way I figured it out is to start the animation and strafe out, because once your hand goes up fully is when the drone starts flying. Once I started doing this, it massively assisted me in not wasting my drones into walls. Once you get that down, the next thing to learn is how to use the map to make your drones explode earlier and do damage to your enemies. Knowing how to use your drone's pathing to exploit the explosive is a big part of playing the Incinerator drone, and that's how you get value out of your drones. Learning how to do this could massively swing fights in your favor for your team. And the last thing is to use it to cut off sections of the map and have the flames be a makeshift wall. This not only can slow down the enemy's push and possibly force them another way, but it also allows you and your team to fight a different area, since your flame wall will now let you know of the enemy's presence if they do decide to walk through it. Now, when you get Purifier, you have to choose between two things. Do you use it to clear a heavily congested area, or do you use it to help shut down Libertad's ult? Both are good, but it depends entirely on what stage of the game you're at. If it's early, then you can use it to get objective control, clearing out the congested area. But if it's later in the game, then you might want to use it to counter that Libertad ult, if you can get close enough, that is. Usually you can, though, with the use of a Phantom Shield or a good flashbang if you know how to use them. As to cleaners, you only have a few counters. These counters are Libertad, kinda, Phantoms, kinda, and DeadSec. Starting with Libertad, their ability to passively and actively heal is what counters you. Simply put, when going up against Libertad players, your damage over time is not as effective because they can always out-heal it. But don't worry, because this mainly only applies to your incendiary rounds. You can still kill them with the burn damage, but 9 times out of 10 they'll live because of that passive healing. Now, if they're using Biovita Boost or El Remedio, then these will completely negate incendiary rounds because that constant regen. So you have to make sure you hit your shots. For Phantoms, their Mag Barrier and Aegis are direct counters to your Incinerator drone and Purifier. So if you see that, make sure you either save them or find another way around to get value out of them. And for DeadSec, there's not really much you can do. They can just straight up hack your Incinerator drone and send it right back at you to explode in your face, alongside being able to cancel your ult with theirs. But usually that last one won't happen because they'll want to save their ult to counter Phantom ult. So as long as you have a Phantom with their ult, then you don't have to worry about your flamethrower getting canceled by DeadSec. And with that being said, that's the end of the guide. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and comments let me know if this video helped you at all. I do have a DeadSec guide coming out here soon, but if you don't want to wait for that and you need another guide, I got 2 right here that you can watch.